Breaking story out of Fall River, and many of you know that I spent the last 12 years, prior to my last year here, but the 12 years prior to that in Fall River, covering government and talking to all of the folks out that way about the various political issues. And breaking news story for our Fall River listeners and our local listeners as well, that comes from a meeting this morning of the Fall River Office of Economic Development Board of Directors. And this meeting this morning was held at the Industrial Park. And during the course of that meeting, it was announced by the president of the Fall River Office of Economic Development, Frank Marchione, that the mayor of Fall River, Mayor Jasiel Correia, who is also chairman of the FROED board, was under investigation by the FBI involving a couple of issues, according to Marchione. Snow Owl, which is an app that was created by the mayor some years back, and also about federal grants that were used for a branding campaign that Mayor Correia has been actively pursuing for the city of Fall River. And the mayor was at that meeting this morning. He was stunned by this announcement. He was chairing the meeting when this announcement was made. He joins us live on the radio, on the phone right now on the radio. Mayor Correia, welcome. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Barry. Nice to hear from you.
Well, so all of a sudden this thing drops this morning. What was your reaction when you heard this?
Well, as I stated, my comments this morning, I was surprised. We were in the middle of some negotiations with the executive board on funding matters, and really, I would argue the exact same thing that they're trying to argue. The reason that they're suddenly making this ridiculous allegation is because we're approaching our new fiscal year, and part of the negotiations of their new funding cycle, I have proposed to cut a significant portion of their funding and divert some of those funds, not completely defund FROED as an organization, but divert some of those funds to other economic development activities in the city of Fall River. So anytime there's change, especially with an individual like their vice president, Ken Fiola, who's been in office there as the vice president for 30 years, anytime there's that kind of a change, there certainly are some rumblings and some ruckuses. And, when people are in jeopardy of potentially losing their big, comfy jobs of $202,000 salaries a year, I can understand why there would be some ludicrous allegations made. But I'll tell you right now, if there are any investigations, I am completely transparent. I have not been subpoenaed. I certainly haven't been indicted. If there are any allegations or investigations, I am totally cooperative and would answer any questions that somebody would have on any of those topics. So, right now, this is just kind of throwing something out there, seeing if it sticks, in order to try and get their funding back, in order to try and slow down the process of some of those funds being revoked from that organization. I listed this morning in front of the board a litany of legitimate reasons as to why we have decided to reduce their funding. Chiefly, the FROED board, the organization itself, has office space in the city hall in Fall River, and they have failed to pay $113,000 in backed rent since prior to me taking office. So I'm cracking down on some of these issues that this organization has had, and they're pushing back with some ridiculous allegation that is totally boundless or baseless, rather, and not proven.
Well, Mayor Correia, I mean, it strikes me as rather odd that any kind of an announcement would be made publicly about an investigation that was going on.
Barry, that's the irony. I actually said that this morning. I stood up and I said, quite frankly, if there were any legitimate investigations and they knew about it, the board members knew about it, or Ken Fiola knew about it, I'm sure, I certainly don't have any interactions with the FBI, but I'm sure from what my understanding is, the FBI nor HUD would want that investigation to be impeded by some kind of public announcement only 2 days after people are able to pull papers for mayor. So as you begin to piece together and weave this pattern, this looks like it's more politically motivated. I've been doing a very good job here in the city of Fall River. We've had a litany of accomplishments that is really not just my accomplishments, the accomplishments of the city council in partnership with our school committee, our counselors, as well as our city government and city officials, our public safety members. We've done a great job in the last year. So to take me on, so to speak, 2 days after papers are being pulled by candidates to run for mayor, this was kind of a Hail Mary pass and last-ditch effort to try and stop some of those things from happening. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be bullied, and that's exactly what this is. This is a bully tactic. This is an intimidation tactic by these individuals on this board, as well as Ken Fiola, who has been known to be a bully. He certainly has bullied a lot of people before, But guess what? I'm not going to be bullied because I have nothing to hide. So if people want to investigate or question, that's okay. But to make some kind of baseless accusation this morning, nobody, certainly not Ken Fiola, knows the reason or the subject of any investigation, Barry. I think everybody can agree to that the FBI wouldn't come out and say, oh, yeah, we're investigating this, and that about the mayor. I mean, that just sounds ridiculous. So this was, again, I'm concluding this was a last-ditch effort to try and avoid me cutting their funding, to try and get other people into the mayor's race. Papers are being pulled now by candidates. I have yet to pull my papers, but I will at a later time when I get a chance. I am still working on a day-to-day basis on other activities here in City Hall, and it's just a ludicrous claim. And I was obviously offended by this claim, but I get it. Politics is politics, and I'll work through this, and I'll continue to do the business of the people here in Fall River.
Ken Fiola, who is I believe his exact title is Executive Director of FROED, or the Fall River Office of Economic Development. I spoke with him on the phone this morning, and he wouldn't elaborate on anything. He did make available to me the statement from Frank Marchione, who is the president of FROED, and Mr. Marchione's statement reads as follows. The Executive Committee has also been informed by a staff member with firsthand knowledge that there is an ongoing FBI and HUD investigation within the city. The investigation focuses on Snow Owl and on HUD-directed funds for a business grant and the City of Fall River branding campaign. This information was collaborated by the FBI and HUD agents requesting documentation regarding that investigation. Has anybody from HUD or the FBI contacted or interviewed anybody on your staff or a government center that you're aware of?
Absolutely not. That's what I mean, Barry. I actually was under the impression that staff person was Ken Fiola himself. He has been known to tell multiple people, that I'm under investigation. He has also been known to tell his board, of course. So, I assume that was that particular person, Ken Fiola himself. I know none of my staff, from our CDA director, who's been here a long time, Mike Dion, to my immediate staff in my office, to Judge Macy, our corporation counsel. No one has been contacted by any agencies in this matter. And I also want to make a statement that's, I think, important. If there is an investigation, if there is an inquiry, it'd be more of an inquiry at this point. Barry, I'll come out and say this right now. There are city councilors that don't like me. There are people that don't like me in the city of Fall River. That's a case. That's a political reality. Anyone is welcome to call the FBI in Lakeville. Anybody's welcome to call HUD. Anybody's welcome to call the Attorney General's office. And and I know, Barry, that happens every single day with allegations and accusations. If somebody looks into something or they have a question, any agency has a question, and they look into it, that's not a bad thing. They're just doing their jobs. But I'm going to say today, emphatically, without any question, without any shadow of a doubt, my administration and my company, myself, we have not done anything wrong, anything illegal. So these accusations are baseless. There may be people looking into, accusations that a counselor or Ken Fiola or somebody may have called one of those agencies and suggest that a crime was committed, and they may be following up on those things. That's the normal course of their job. That doesn't mean anybody's guilty of anything. That doesn't mean we did anything wrong, because we did not do anything wrong. The only organization that's done anything wrong is FROED. There's a litany of problems with that organization, ranging from mismanagement of buildings that they own to mismanagement of loans and loan forgivenesses, mismanagement of parking garages, mismanagement of a lot of different things that we are bringing to the forefront. So I expected some political back and forth. I certainly didn't expect a ridiculous allegation. I mean, these people are coming after my livelihood and my life, which is ridiculous. I think that's it's shameful on them. But I'll go back to what I originally started saying. If there were any investigation, I guarantee the FBI would not collaborate any type of subject of that investigation, any type of information with anyone. So, I mean, the proof's in the pudding here. When you look at the statement that was read this morning, 2 days after people can pull papers for mayor, a few days before I decide to defund that organization by, almost 50%, which would, of course, make sure, ensure that Ken Fiola would either have to take a pay cut or they'd have to lay off some staff. When you start piecing those pieces together, you really see what's going on here. And that's really what.
If my memory serves me correctly, if my memory serves me correctly, Mayor, when you were a member of the City Council prior to getting elected mayor, did the City Council not send a resolution to then Mayor Will Flanagan to establish exactly what you're proposing here, a cabinet level?
That's the irony, Barry. So that happened in 2013 and again in 2014, twice, two separate resolutions supported by, I think it was unanimously at the time, of the councils on both occasions in 13 and 14. And there have always, I mean, you were You were here in the city for a long time, over a decade. There have always been questions about FROED. There have always been calls for concern about that organization, and that particularly their executive director. And in this particular case, we were exploring the possibility of not totally defunding them. We were in the process of negotiating a contract, an ongoing contract, moving forward after June 1st in the new fiscal year of what their funding would be. I mean, does that mean that every little organization that gets funding from CDBG funds can come crying to the mayor and say, oh, no, you're under investigation, that way you can't take away our funds? No. I mean, that's not the professional way to do this. They have no actual facts. And if there were an investigation, I can guarantee, again, that the FBI would not say, oh, yeah, absolutely, go and tell the world that the mayor's under investigation. This is a last-ditch effort by Ken Faiola to protect his funding with his $202,000 salary that I've seen very little results from in recent history. Some of these projects that he takes credit for landed in his lap, and they're not his projects. It's the city of Fall River. That's what is most important. No particular person that is not elected should have the power to decide what is good, what's not good for the city. We leave that in the hands of the elected officials and the staff and the boards that really promote the economic development policy of the city.
Well, as I remember also, the City Council and the Chamber of Commerce and many folks in Fall River were demanding a branding campaign, and that was part of your original...
That's another irony here. Again, and if you look at the two things that are named, aside from my private business, the two things named in the letter, I'm looking at the letter, are a business grant, which was for a company in Fall River at the amount of $25,000, and secondly, the branding campaign launch event, which was $10,000. So we're talking about $35,000 here, Barry. I mean, seriously, this is like a little bit ridiculous that Ken Faiola would be suggesting that somehow we did something improper around $35,000. Now, it doesn't matter. Had we done something improper with $1, it would be cause for pause and investigation. But at the end of the day, if there's an inquiry, I'd be curious if there were, and if there is a result of that inquiry, what that result is. But to throw out this crazy accusation that I'm under FBI investigation, first of all, this doesn't even say that Jasiel Correia is under FBI investigation. It just says that these documents were requested. So, again, it's just speculation. 2 days after people can pull papers for a mayor, several days before I begin to reduce the funding to that organization, which would then, probably cause a pay cut for Mr. Ken Faiola or something, a reorganization of that board. I feel really bad for the volunteer board members of that board. They certainly were stunned. They were not aware. I've been informed by board members that a letter that they received was opposite of what letter that was read this morning. In fact, that it was a different letter read this morning than the letter that they received from attorneys. My assessment of this letter is that it was not prepared by any attorney. There's grammatical errors. There's non-factual information. Lawyers tend to be pretty factual in their statements. And most importantly, when I look at something like Snow Owl, which is my private company, I don't understand what information Mr. Faiola would have about my private company, so I don't understand why any investigative agency would ask him any questions about that. The whole thing doesn't make sense. It smells bad. It looks bad. It looks like a last-ditch effort from people that have their own agendas that are contrary to the agenda of the city. My agenda has been to put money in people's pockets, back in the taxpayers' pockets, which we have. We eliminated a $120 household fee for trash. We privatized trash collection. We have the biggest infrastructure plan that we've seen in the city's history. Our downtown is going to begin to get some streetscapes, much like downtown New Bedford has done. Zero-based budgeting saved us $2.2 million. We put $3 million in our free cash stabilization account from $300,000, all in the first year. We're increasing our police force. We're increasing our fire department. We just bought brand-new trucks for our fire department. I mean, we've had a litany of accomplishments, so that's a tough record to beat 2 days after you can pull your papers for mayor. So, that's what's going on here. That's very simple. Until anything else happens, I'm going to continue to do the business of the people. I'm an honest person. I'm an honest man. I've got a good family. I'm a Fall River resident lifelong. And, it's disappointing that I have to have my grandmother call me or my mother call me and say, what the heck is going on? I'm hearing this on the radio, I'm hearing that. That's very sad for my family and for myself. They certainly don't need that. It comes with the job. I get it's political season. It's political high season, obviously. And I'm going to face everything with poise and ease and and answer any single person's questions that they have.
To be honest with you, Mayor, from the first week that you were in office, the rumors had started circulating, and you know where they started circulating was that Snow Owl was under investigation by the FBI. But you had the audacity to take on the power network behind the scenes, and the folks in New Bedford may not understand how politics is in Fall River. It's very, very different. There's a group of people, powerful people behind the scenes that like to pull a lot of the strings that go on in Fall River, and in for years and years, the politicians have really done their bidding, and FroEd has been a center for that. And these folks have padded the boards, and these folks have seen that money through FroEd has been directed to where they want it to go.
Exactly.
And you've stood up to that, and as a result of that, it's their intention to try to crush you. There's no question about it.
No question about that. And I'll tell you, those are the people, those are the city councilors and the power players and the other people that are calling these agencies. And Barry, anyone is welcome to call. I could call right now and say, hey, Ken Fiola has done X, Y, and Z with this funding. Anybody can call and make that allegation. Whether it's true or not is the really important piece. And obviously, in this particular case, it's not true. I'm telling you it's not true. I think if there is, again, I don't even know if there's an investigation, but if there were, I think that it would be shown that that's not true. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at the timeline here, let's say there were, and all of a sudden, 2 days after being able to pull papers for mayor and several days before I cut the funding to this organization, through their president, decides to announce that the mayor is under investigation. I mean, it just doesn't add up, Barry. That's what's happening here. Now, Ken can come on and say this, and that, and he's going to, do his dance because he's in jeopardy of losing his job. I expected that, but you know what? I've got to do what's best for the city of Fall River and move the city forward. We were negotiating in good faith. I think every board member this morning agreed that I had multiple meetings with them. I wasn't trying to dismantle the organization, but just restructure some of the funding so that other economic development activity could take place. The small business stuff, the city awnings on, public buildings and downtown buildings, the small business grants that have been much more successful in some of the loans that FroEd has done. A lot of that will come out, as the weeks progress. But this is just a massive distraction from an excellent track record that this administration has put together over the last year. It's a distraction, and it's a last-ditch effort to try and get somebody enough motivation, I guess, to get into the race to take me on. Unfortunately, that's the way that Ken Fiola likes to do things. It's not right, and it's totally, I think, wrong what he did this morning. And I think the board even agrees with me in some sense. I've already spoken to some of the FroEd board members, and like I said, they told me the letter that they saw yesterday was different than the letter that was read this morning, so that's concerning. I don't know who altered that letter, but I'm sure we'll find out in the future. And then secondly, my statements were, if this is true, if there is an investigation, how does this board meddle in an investigation, kind of pull the wool, from everybody and say, hey, this investigation's happening. That doesn't even make sense, Barry.
And this all comes from a staff member. But also, and I know you got another date in a couple of minutes here, and I'll let you go, but this, for public consumption as well, you were not the first mayor that's tried to dismantle FroEd. Sam Sutter before you, Will Flanagan before him.
Bob Correia before him. Have
all tried and unsuccessfully tried to take apart FroEd, and because that group of people in the background that we talk about stopped it from happening. So it's not surprising that you hit a wall on this one, at least for now.
Well, again, those tactics are going to be used, and that's okay. And I'm fortunately strong enough to be able to handle that. And again, we're trying to do the best for the city of Fall River. That's my only goal here. I'm 25 years old. I was elected mayor of the city of Fall River. We've done well on almost all of our promises that we said we would in the first year, and we're going to keep working for the taxpayers of Fall River and making this the best place it possibly can be. This is a minor bump in the road that I got to deal with.
Did we happen to mention, too, that Ken Fiola's wife is considering a run for mayor against you? Did we happen to bring that up? I don't remember if we did.
We didn't bring it up. I know you and I didn't bring it up. I don't know if that to be true. She's never told me that, of course. I mean, I don't know if you've heard that. I don't know if there are rumors around that, but that could be another motivating factor as well. I don't know. I certainly think if Ms. Fiola jumped into the race now, that it'd be a little bit questionable that, her husband's funding, source, his employer just announced that I was under investigation, totally baselessly, with no confirmation at all. And I certainly don't believe, and I don't think anyone believes, I literally don't think anyone believes that the FBI would collaborate or tell Ken Fiola that absolutely, yes, the mayor is under investigation for X, Y, and Z. It doesn't make any sense. That's not their motivation. We don't even know if I'm the subject of the investigation. It could be him. it could in fact be Ken Fiola that's the subject of an investigation, and documentation was being looked at. In fact, most of the documentation requested has to do with his office, not mine, aside from my private business, which has nothing to do with any city entities. It has no loans or any money received from the city of Fall River. So, I don't understand how he would have any information on that to give any agencies anyway. So certainly very, very bizarre, certainly very disappointing. A smear campaign that's coming out from some of my adversaries. I expect that. I don't expect it to be the nature that it is today of accusing someone of something that's most likely not true in terms of an actual investigation, but certainly any kind of activities that would be illegal have not been committed here in the city.
Well, there are no specific allegations either. That's
absolutely not. There are no. This is what I mean, Barry. There are no allegations, and there's just it's totally baseless. It's totally like, okay, we're going to throw this out there and say the mayor may or may not be under investigation, to scare people, 2 days after people can pull papers and several days before they potentially lose their funding. Very, very fishy, very smelly, very dirty, very disappointing by Ken Fiola and the members of the FROED Executive Committee. So we'll see how this plays out. I'm completely transparent. You know that, Barry. You've known me for several years. I've always been transparent. I've always told the truth about matters that are in the public realm. And at this point, I could have hit up here and I could have not done any interviews. I could have not addressed it and waited, and I decided not to do that. You called me. I got on here. I have a few other interviews today. And that's how I'm going to handle this. I'm going to handle it head on, because this, to me, is a political attack more than anything else. And that's unfortunate, and that distracts us. Fall River's on the rise. We're doing the right things. We're moving forward, and we're making it here, and we're going to continue to make it here. And that's not going to be a problem. So stay tuned, I'm sure. But thank you for having me on.
All right, Mayor Jasiel Correia, City of Fall River, appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on the air, and let's get you back when we talk about some more positive stuff.
Okay, definitely, Barry. Take care.